My name is Terry. I'm a marriage and family therapist. I've been practicing for about 16 years now, and I'm in private practice in Federal Way, Washington. I'm licensed under the Department of Health. I have loved being a therapist. It was the proudest day of my life when I got my license. I absolutely love helping to alleviate suffering in people, whether that's through anxiety, depression, trauma, or parenting issues. I absolutely love it. My experience with the Department of Health started with a fairly neutral letter in the mail one day. After I received the notice, I went through my files. I racked my brain. Who could be unhappy? What could possibly have gone wrong? Was it a current client? Was it a past client? I had no clue whatsoever. It was unnerving is the best I could put it. I mean, I lost sleep over it. I initially wrote a letter to the Department of Health saying, I appreciate the notice, and I have always been open and honest with my clients. I have nothing to hide, willing to cooperate in any way whatsoever, and I would love to be privy to what they have, or who the complainant is, or what the evidence is. And I got a very terse response saying, we don't supply that, that's considered evidence, and we don't share that. At that point I felt very scared. I was sure I needed an attorney at that point, and I had no idea what was about to come. The next step, I believe, was a very in-depth questionnaire from the Department of Health that consisted of many, many pages of questions, quotations from this complainant, asking me to respond to them. By the time I got the questionnaire, they had given me the name of the complainant. Again, the quotations seemed very out of context. They'd never seen anything like this, and they were pulled from I don't know where. It was like a rambling diatribe that even the Department of Health didn't know what to do with, so they took snippets of it and they literally had them in quotations and asked me to respond. The next step in the process was discussing this with my attorney. She was telling me that we've got everything covered. Clearly, there can't be a case here. And I tried to relax a little bit, but there was no word back from the Department of Health whatsoever. I very naively thought the truth would matter. I very naively thought the truth would make a difference, and that when she said these are bogus charges, that the truth would make a difference. It did not make a difference throughout this entire process. I submitted numerous statements refuting the charges that were facts that could be investigated. None of it was either read or responded to, I don't know which. I felt all of my efforts with the Department of Health were falling on deaf ears every single time. I turned in numerous documents, statements, evidence, standard of practice guidelines from my field. I did an entire research packet and turned it in. Nothing made a difference, and no one from the department ever spoke to me directly. It was a horrifying experience, to say the least. Eventually, the unproven allegations, as I kept questioning them and kept turning in evidence, were transformed into formal charges without any explanation whatsoever. Again, some of them even being new for the first time after 2 years of a process. I had the option to continue and go to a hearing, but after lining up witnesses and everything else and finding out the cost, I learned that it's very seldom that the department ever holds for the respondent, and even if they do, it's not in their best interest, and the decision can be reversed again on the director's prerogative. I decided to cut my losses and end the bizarre experience. I do believe this was a case of this state agency, the Department of Health, being judge, jury, and executioner here. There is no oversight, I have found out in the years since this has happened. It is a closed system. It is the department's prerogative whether they follow the RCWs or the WACs, the WACs. The ones I cited were never honored. I was never provided evidence. I was never provided due process. The state never owned the burden of proof. The state never proved harm that was done or even risk of harm. They just kept throwing this stuff out, and time after time after time, they came back and said, that's our prerogative. We can do what we want. And that's exactly what happened.